So I ran out of time, and I was getting C. Bauer writes is going to read perfect. And we're back.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's fine. So I got this isn't my house that I'm staying at right now. I'm actually stuck 20 miles away from home because of winter weather. It's
Oh
been
no, where are you?
I'm in Iowa.
Oh wow, okay.
So we've had ice storms and tomorrow we're getting another 6 to 8 inches of snow and I work 20 miles from where I live, so I'm staying with a friend. And he's got these awesome color changing chandeliers, so they're kind
I
of cool.
see, that is fantastic. I love that.
So my favorite is red. I leave it on red most of the time.
The red was on, yeah, that's pretty. I love that.
You should see the room. I don't know if you can see it, but this whole room is red.
Oh, that's cool.
It's got, I don't know. It changes.
Yeah, that's cool. I bet that cost a little bit.
I don't know how much he paid for it. I think it wasn't that much, but he found it on Amazon.
Oh wow.
Okay, I'm gonna read something then, I guess.
All right, yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, this one's called Rainy August. I have to say this one's one of my personal favorites. It's also one of my oldest ones. It's over a decade old.
Oh wow.
But you were talking about my handwriting before. That was actually the original draft of this one that I wrote in my notebook when I first brainstormed it.
Oh wow, that's always cool to see when you come back across the drafts.
Right.
Cool.
So it goes like this, and this is based on true experience. And I do live in Iowa, so try to picture yourself there when I read this.
Okay.
Fighting sleep on the drive home after the thunderstorm, I am watching as the mayflies emerge from the cornfields and notice how they lay their bodies down in masses upon the roadway. A collective sacrificial suicide bath, short-lived transparent wings and thoraxes, no thoughts, only instinct. And I am worried as I pass and think of those 3,000 insect souls the tires of my car have just released into the afterlife, the atmosphere of the sorrowful Midwest, and how they will feed on the ghosts of fields when the fields die in winter.
That's fantastic. Oh wow. I love, I've had those exact same thoughts on a similar type of drive, and with the mayflies coming out of the fields, their numbers always make me wonder how many are being lost to just the simple passage of my vehicle. That's a really excellent focus on that minute detail. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think my friends just got home.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thanks. I'm live on Instagram right now.
Got your meatloaf Instagram.
He brought me supper, okay?
Where's
That's nice.
You never sent me the dessert menu like I asked.
Oh, I know. Look, here's your money.
Thanks. Okay. I'm just reading my poetry. Okay, let me see which one I want to read next. Do you want something happy or do you want something like not so happy.
However you feel.
I'll read this one called Death in Babylon. It's not really happy, it's not really sad, it's just mediocre.
Neutral. Cool.
Okay, so this one's also over a decade old. Most of the ones that I posted on my Instagram, I wrote between 2004 and 2008. And I've just recently revamped them, rewrote a lot of them to make them suitable for posting on Instagram. Okay, so this one is called Death in Babylon. Bow low on your knees to the high north winds in the wake of your old world philosophies and the broken seeking of the fruit of your squandered labor. Thirst not for the blood of fools, but for the richness of the wisdom of the fool, for it is overflowing in abundance, and much discernment can be mined from it. Here the wise are ridiculed by the wiser, who are themselves defamed by the wisest. The wise are higher only than the fools, who now move in to take the places that the greater once had seat in. They are now only able to inflict their self-wounds upon the passers-by, while still believing to have found beauty in their sting. I aim out these malicious dust grains of earth, each bearing the mark of a collective mission. Set across the tempest, my abrasive needles of the desert dune, while you are halfway expecting grace at the hands of my anarchy, I am exacting my revenge. My collectors scavenge anything of value, even unraveling the forbidden scrolls of the lined sky. For not today, nor tomorrow, as we do not yet know of, still we speak of them, will bring word of what will remain when it is finished. The news will come as a never-ending army, flawless in technique, its attacks and broadside strikes a flash, bashing the ships of men into oblivion before they can even spread their mast cloths, crushing any hope of victory within. And so now we must drink to these divine conquests. Beside the shadows of dancing fires and epic violin curving through these halls into vague distorted notes like great iron gates that tell their own stories might sound, even if there are none to listen, none to pass them on. But here they will remain vigilantly waiting until the red moon rises at dusk, while we save ourselves from this death in Babylon.
Wow. Thank you so much. There's a lot going on in that piece. Was there a specific event that you were writing about?
Not
Was there
really.
something in your life specifically that had motivated this?
I'd been kind of reading like a whole bunch of medieval type books back then. So, I don't know, it kind of reminded me of that.
I definitely get that feel from it. I really loved that one part about the violins and the distorted notes and the comparison to the iron gates. It really just brought home the visual of the music. I mean, it gave the words sound. I think that's just so amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you want to do one more?
No, I think that one was long enough.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Chad, for hanging out, and I'm glad you approved of, the way I had read your work. And I'm so glad to have met you, and I look very much forward to your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oop, I almost ended the whole live video. Hold on. Okay. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, C. Bauer Writings. That was nice. Yeah, wow. Epic poetry in more ways than one. Ryan, it says that you're still here. Did you want to come live? If you want to play Earthquake for me, that would be fantastic. Sorry, I'm just messing with my candles. There we go. I'm not sure if Ryan is in here or not. So I will probably. Hello, Jen Everlong. Nice to see you. We're just reading some poems. I'm reading other people's poems. Other people are reading their poems. If you'd like to come live or would like me to read your work, just let me know. I can never count on this viewer counter. It's always wrong. So meanwhile, I will probably read another small piece of mine. Okay. This is called From Dirt to Stone and Back Again. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm congested. The Amber River is dammed by a deeper self. Faces that need absolution linger as ghosts, cower on the wrong side of a wall that stretches on forever in both directions, fading into the persistent mists of this great place. Each massive obsidian block with the word no 100 times in a dozen languages written in its alabaster veins, each weighty cube and rectangle with a sliver of grout, the taped mouth of the folded blind. Ascent is a comedy of cartoon tumbles and Acme errors. A cymbal crashes after the slide whistle, but no one is laughing. No one is even there. Only one sunken spirit, hallowed, the remnants of the essence of man dejected. He balances precariously on the maelstrom ledge of resignation and the disintegration that it brings. Let's see here. I have another poem that I wrote with too much first person. I don't know. I think it paints an interesting picture. Thank you, Megan. Yep, that was one of mine. That was called, hold on. I don't even know my own work. From Dirt to Stone and Back Again was the one I just read. This next one is called Septober Revisited. And I wrote it about some stuff that happened in some years ago. I guess it's coming on about 10 now. Time does go by. Septober creeps in, remnants of fading memories on the wind, flaring up in the blood when the corn whispers. Things faded in the mind over nearly a decade, float to the surface, wailing softly, voices just the dry rasp of lost time. You swept into Wolfie's kitchen 9 years after our first kiss, 5 years after high school, 10 years ago from today. The battered wood frame screen door clattering behind you and time dripping from your eyes. Soon we were drunk off the Mr. C's you made at Wolfie's table, my table. Seaside Heights when you ordered our sushi in Japanese. Wolfie's kitchen again. All those cigarettes. And then 2 weeks in my room. City Spot coffees, the almond perfume. Your Abercrombie or American Eagle cologne mixed with leather and cigarettes. I smelled that on a guy standing in line with me for a show in New York City once. I nearly fainted. Driving around at the end of September in my old Chrysler, trying to see some leaves change, driving far away to find it because you had missed it all those years in Okinawa. Didn't you, Staff Sergeant Kalili Septober? And then you were gone, again, for a third time, for the last time. But September still comes, like our identical birthdays every year. Remember the day you left? The woman checking IDs for Oktoberfest at Circa couldn't believe it. 10 years later, I don't believe it either. But the whispering corn, the turning leaves, and God forbid I smell the ocean, beer, and Masago, I would probably disintegrate and blow away into the sea. Yeah, it's interesting how time goes by and what sticks and what doesn't. Megan, you had said that it sounds different when I read it out loud relative to the Dirt and Stone poem. Thank you. It's always interesting to see the contrast. So yeah, if anybody else is interested in reading, I think we have all the same people, so I'm going to spare you all that rap and just I'll read one more of mine, and then I'll read some published literary authors. I think we'll do Baudelaire tonight. I have Le Fleur du Mal in 2 different French translations, and it might be interesting to compare the two. So this one is called Scent of Danger. This is by me before we dive into the Baudelaire. A little bit of wrong makes me remember how far a path can lead into the dark. A coolness comes along like mid-September. One foot touches down beyond the start. A tingle up my leg like tiny spiders crawling up to creep into my mind. I remember this road very clearly, but there's only ever been one thing there at the end for me to find. I turn away from right at times. It's boring. It keeps me as a pet, its grip so tight. It keeps me warm and safe, though, gives me warning, keeps me far away from that which fades my light. I turn away and bring my foot back with me, back the way I came, retreating swiftly. That poem was inspired by being in my youth a little bit reckless, perhaps, with my love and others' love and just recklessness. And how over time, you calm down, you stop being a dickweed, and, sometimes you get those urges to be bad. And at this point in my life, I can see that and smell it on the wind. And even if I get all the way over to the line of where I have to make that decision of whether or not I'm going to do the bad thing, sometimes I get 1 foot over there and I can just feel all those little tiny spiders of badness crawling up me. And I'm just like, nope. And I return to the light. So that was by me. I think we will do some Baudelaire. As I said, I have 2 translations of Le Fleur du Mal. So what I want to do is take a poem from the one book and read the translation by William Agler, and then I'll read the same poem as translated by Richard Howard. I have some notes in here. It looks like I picked some. Here's one called The Sick Muse, and I'm just going to find that in the other book. The Sick Muse, 18. It's so exciting to do this with Baudelaire, because he was French, obviously. Thank you, Megan. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right, so we have our books here. Oh, they were already marked out. That's so funny. Okay, so I'm going to read the translation by Howard first, and then we'll read the one by Agler. The Sick Muse. And you know what? Let's go stanza by stanza. The first stanza. Good morning, Muse. What's wrong? Something you saw last night is left in your hollow eyes. Your color's bad, your cheeks are cold, with horror, with madness, and you don't say a word. That's the first stanza. And then to see the translation is, my poor Muse, alas, what ails you today? Your hollow eyes are full of nocturnal visions. I see in turn reflected on your face horror and madness, cold and taciturn. Isn't that interesting? There's whole words that are added and subtracted from this. And you can see in the original French translations which one is closer. The Agler translation is much, much closer to the words. From what I can decipher, my French is not great, but I can see, on the second line, it specifically cites the word nocturne. So on this translation, they specifically cite nocturne, but in the Howard translation, there is no reference to that except the word night. We'll move on. It's only a 4-stanza poem, so. Are you silenced by the love and fear dispensed by greenish vampires, rosy ghouls, or sunk in some legendary bog held under by nightmare's unrelenting fist? The second translation. Have the green succubus, the rosy elf, poured out for you love and fear from their urns? Has the hand of nightmare, cruel and despotic, plunged you to the bottom of some weird Minturna? Minturna is a swampland near Italy. Oh, somebody loves me. Excuse me a moment. Okay. So again, if you look at the original French, the capital name of that swampland is written, and you will see it in the English translation by Agler, but the Howard translation does not have it at all. I really don't have a lot of respect for the Howard translation, honestly, because it's just so obviously different. But again, it's all up to interpretation. That's what, someone who is translating does. It's all up to the way that you want to personify things. But the Agler translation is, and often, in my mind, much better. Third stanza by Howard. Not like this. I want you safe and sound, thinking fit thoughts, breathing deep, your Christian bloodstream coursing song, and steadfast as the copious classical vein. Oh. The third stanza by Agler. I would that your bosom, fragrant with health, were constantly the dwelling place of noble thoughts, and that your Christian blood would flow in rhythmic waves. No. Again, isn't it so interesting? And to read the third stanza of the French, it specifically cites rhythmic, and the Agler translation has rhythmic, and the Howard translation has nothing of rhythm, only song. And the final stanza. Like the measured sounds of ancient verse, over which reign in turn the father of all songs, Phoebus and the great Pan, Lord of harvest. And the final stanza by Howard. And steadfast as the copious classical vein in the double realm of Pan and Apollo, Lord of the harvest, father of song. Now, I don't know what the correlation is between Apollo and Phoebus, but I see the correlation of, they both incorporated Pan and Lord of the Harvest, but not well, they both have the Father of Song part, but I don't know if Phoebus and Apollo are connected. So that is an example of the difference between interpretations of the French language across the same poem. Here, I seem to have another one marked off, so I'm just going to see what I can see that I set up for myself, I guess, the previous day. All right. In the Agler translation, this is called Gloomy Madrigal, and in the Howard translation, it is called Sad Madrigal. Now I need some new Post-its. I didn't know a Post-it gets so old that the glue would disappear. Okay. The first stanza of Sad Madrigal. What does it matter to me that you are wise? Be lovely and be sad. Tears are an advantage to the face, as streams enhance the meadow's mystery, and rains refresh the rose. The Agler translation. What is it to me that you are sage? Be beautiful and be sad. Tears add a charm to the countenance as a stream does to a landscape. Storms make the flowers fresh again. Those are pretty close. But to look at the French translation again, it actually looks like the Howard is closer on this one. That's how odd. I've never seen that in this book. Second stanza by Howard. I love you best of all when happiness fades from your downcast brow, when horror overflows your heart, and when your days are darkened by a spreading cloud, the shadow of the past. Second stanza by Agler. I love you most of all when joy flees from your oppressed brow, when your heart is drowned in horror, when the frightful cloud of the past is spread out over your present. Once again, the Howard translation is actually closer to the original French. My mind is kind of blown right now. This is interesting. The Howard translation has 4 stanzas. Am I missing something? Oh, I am. This is actually terribly long. Good news, everyone. I'll probably stop with the Baudelaire, but that is an example of what I'm talking about between the interpretations across the same poem across different interpreters. And I adore Baudelaire. So I get a little annoyed when it doesn't correlate with the original French. The meatloaf is delicious. I'm so glad. I love meatloaf. I made one a couple of weeks ago, but it's long gone. It was good. I actually couldn't find my loaf pan, so I put it in a bundt pan, so it was a circular meatloaf. It was fun. So let's see. I'm not sure. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet. This is a book by N.R. Shepard. He's a writer I follow on Instagram. I love him. Actually, this thing back here, I don't know if I can zoom. I can, look, oh my god. He sent me this because I pre-ordered. The page will always be empty until you do something to it, until you put something on it. So that was from the pre-order of his book. I'll read a little bit out of there. My candle gave up the ghost again. Oh, wow. He has the meat circle. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. He also sent us bookmarks. The book is called Bones and Roses, so he made these and sent them out with everyone, if you pre-ordered. Yeah, me too. That's great. Meat circle. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. So, as you can see, I have dog-eared the living crap out of this. And then the last third or so, I didn't dog-ear at all because I just poured over all of it at the same time in the bath. This book is fantastic, and Shepard has a unique writing style. He's very blunt, and he takes you down some really dark alleys, but he also is very insightful and highly philosophical. So I have no idea which things I should settle on to read because so many of them were good. And I also have been sitting on this book because he just released it not long ago, and I didn't want to be giving away all his secrets. Excuse me. He writes some really excellent poetry about relationships, but that is by far not the point. This is one of my favorites. This is called Every Right. I never told you, but I fucked her the day that you left here. Broken hearts bleed bourbon, and I'm not sorry. I won't justify it. I don't have to. Every right was before me on a platter, and I hesitated to fork such justice, but I did it. I knew before I exhaled the first hit of my post-sex cigarette that I never wanted to see either of your faces ever again. So good. Here's a longer piece that you can see some of these pages are double dog-eared because both sides of it was fantastic. This one doesn't have a title. I watched the sun come up today. It came differently than times before. 2 years ago, my mother gave me a basket that I stuffed in a closet and never bothered to dig through. Last night I got it down and dove in. Underneath old articles of clothing and pictures lied many truths that I was unaware of, 3 decades blind. She had sat up late writing letters to a man who left her sitting at home. She knew what he was doing. She loved him with every particle of her presence. The letter suggested it might not have been as mutual. I don't know what happened before the last letter, and 2 months later when their motorcycle accident claimed his life. Many things changed before that night. I still remember the night I was awoken by my grandma and rushed off to the preacher's house in my jammies because there'd been an accident, 7 years old. She sent roses to the funeral home from her hospital bed, many broken bones and an amputated foot. It broke my ribs reading the letter she wrote afterwards, a faded yellow square-folded goodbye letter, typed up on my grandma's old typewriter. The one that tells him she misses him and will still one day make him proud. This woman, 28 years after the fact, still brushes off his grave on the anniversary of their accident. She brings him a beer and plays music. Whether that's love or loyalty, I can't really say. She has loved a lot since then and birthed my little sister. No wonder she's been drunk as long as I can remember. She gave me that basket so she can let go. Petals die, thorns remain, and will always hurt when you squeeze them. Fuck. That one gets me. He gets me every time. I mean, these poems just knock me stupid. I'm consistently overwhelmed. There's a story in this book that comes up in 3 pieces. Again, this is Bones and Roses by Anna Shepard. It comes up in 3 pieces, in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And when the story closes, for me, when the story closed, I was just knocked off my feet. The wind was removed from my body. I would absolutely recommend you read this book. I would read the story now, but it's like one of the highlights of the book, and I don't want to give it away. Damned to Live. They ask why I write so dark and self-damning, why so much about death. I don't have poetic responses to those questions or a clever play on words. Simply put, I'm extremely familiar with it all. I'd like to say you become numb to it, but you don't. You gain an understanding that it is more a part of your life than others' lives. They spike themselves to the cross, bullets rip through their flesh, or a miscalculation on someone's behalf. No matter the circumstances, we are all going. Some before others, maybe I'm here to go last. They say you can't keep a good man down. Maybe that's the reason I'm still on the ground, and I'm still around. Because the good die young. So if I make it to a ripe old age, I'll be sitting around a table having coffee with a few old bastards I've known all these years, with tombstones and teardrops swirling in the marbles under our silver eyebrows, while our whites become a yellowish red haze, like the sun is set along the horizon of our eyes' rims, and one by one the glow burns out. This is a good one. Outskirts. Sitting on the steps of an old abandoned house on the outskirts of town. I come here often. I look down and spit between my boots. The grass is thick and weeds are high. A dilapidated barn nearly falling over. With strong winds it could collapse. There was once a happy family inside. Pictures on the walls, clothes in the closet as if they disappeared, vanished. Maybe packed lightly and moved away somewhere. I'm a little jealous. Maybe they were all slaughtered in their sleep. Still a little jealous. No cars have come down this backcountry road in quite a while. It's dark, peaceful. I hear her get done pissing and pulling up her pants. She said she wants to go back before her boyfriend gets home from the bar. I know him. He's not at the bar. Small world, small town. When I got this book, I had just ended a 3-month cycle of staying 2.5 hours away to be with my dad in the hospital. He went from hospital to rehab center, physical rehab center, back to the hospital, back to the rehab center. And he went in on May 1st and he came home, I believe, in August. Yeah. And I think I bought this book in September. So this poem hit really close to home for me. This is called The Cycle. I'll probably cry. Please excuse me. I smoke outside the hospital, right beside the sign. I smoke outside the hospital, right beside the sign that reads, "This is a smoke-free campus." But I don't throw my butts down. I pocket them and she finds them on laundry day. I lean against a brick wall and look out at the lot, an onyx desert of multicolored debt, systematically aligned for the sake of anarchy because we couldn't manage ourselves reasonably if there wasn't a grid of organization keeping us between the lines. I've never done well with that. I look at the man sitting on the curb, 60s, coughing his life up and spitting it on the pavement. Irony. Someone upstairs will die today. Someone driving one of those cars in the lot is visiting someone taking their last breath. A young woman barely dressed with a child on her hip and 3 little ones in tail, ducklings following mama. I hate to make assumptions, but we do it. You can bet she will struggle in the ER waiting room. Heathens, get over here, sit down, no. The little one with the shoulder-length, ratty blonde hair and the gingy blue summer dress waves to me as they walk by. Hello. Just children thinking about the little things. They haven't the slightest idea of what lingers in the hallways of these places, what has came and gone. Life hasn't yet spun fast enough or hard enough for them to realize they're walking into the house of health, suffering, sorrow, saving, and prayers that ring against deaf ears. Birth on one floor, death on another. Somewhere between the lines, people fight to stay parked in a well-lit spot with a decent view, while others get tagged and towed away. And then someone else will pull right in. This is called linger. I take things personal, and when it means something, it means everything. Songs and moments, I keep them close to heart. Pictures thrown in the fire, but burned in my mind. I can paint the walls, but they'll always be that color. People love that house until they learn someone died there. History has a way of hanging out, haunting. The deeper the pain, the more vivid the dreams. You can feel the sheet pulling away and the room getting cold. The cough of a lover, the call of a name. I swear I heard you scream. Oh my God. Jesus. All right. I can't decide which of these two to do, so I'm going to do both of them, and then I'm going to put Shepherd's book away. A Final Dawn. It was 4 a.m. He took his last breath. I need a cigarette for these two. Hold on. Damn. Shepherd gets into the nooks and crannies of the deepest, darkest parts of your psyche. If you've ever wondered something terrible about yourself or the world, Shepherd's written a poem about it. It's not all poems. Some of them are just long. Some of them are more like poems. There's not really a form. A Final Dawn. It was 4 a.m. He took his last breath. Sitting beside him, I waited for the gurgle in his lungs to come back, hoping with every fiber in me that it would not, hoping this hospice hell is upon its final dawn. Tick-tock, 4 on the dot, deceased in the midst of a child, while his own children lie barely in slumber. We all were fatigued. The suffering has to cease. Go, Pawpaw. Embrace the sleep you deserve. Slip into the place of peace and painless prairies. We will tell ourselves that, at least. Mama, wake up. He's gone. Are you sure? Yes, I am. I had waited and laid my ear to a tranquil chest, listening for the thumps of a heart that loved me deeper than that of a grandson, but as a son, for he stepped in when no one else did. That piece struck most to me because the part where he says, Mama, wake up, he's gone, and he says, are you sure? Yes, I am. What kind of trust do you have, must you have, to be able to ask someone that question and believe them without having to check yourself. That blows my mind. This next piece doesn't have a title. And I distinctly remember sitting in the bath and bawling my eyes out at the end of this. Suicide has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. From families, friends, to classmates, and my own friends taking their own lives throughout mine. I've had dark times of my own, in which I once found myself dangling from an extension cord in my home during a period I called January. I'll spare you the details for now. Google it. And our shepherd January. I know life can become unbearable. You tend to feel there's absolutely no light going to break such thick, dark air, but I can attest it is there, somewhere. Sure, wounds will leave their mark. There are no words that heal. You can read poetry from now to the dawn of the millennium, but it will not patch the holes in your soul. The only thing that heals you is yourself, and that takes the mindset to forward observe the positive. There's a light on somewhere, and if you can't see it, you must go in search. If you won't go find it, then the truth is, it may remain a land of black, morbid mentality that consumes your existence. You do have to get up and move. I don't know how. I've managed to come through my own tunnels of darkness. I could cliche you to death, pun intended, on how to overcome depression and sadness, but I have no answers. I do know it becomes nearly impossible to emerge from the deep, dark woods. I also know if you just lay there, you will suffocate. The only chance at survival is to tread water and give it all you've got to get to dry land, solid ground. My darkest period resulted in a stay at a psychiatric ward. I couldn't rise above it. I needed help, and I knew it was consuming me. If you are drowning and your arms cannot tread swamp water any longer, get help. There is no shame in asking for a life jacket. I wish many I have known before would have just waved their arms. Fucking goosebumps. Oh. Jeez. I said I was going to put this book away. I'm going to put it away. But again, and our Shepherd's Bones and Roses. You can go to his Instagram. I'm pretty sure he's got some links up if you wanted to get the book. And I would really, really, really suggest doing it, because if you read the whole book, there's underlying recurring themes and storylines. And I can't think of the last time I read a book that engaged me so deeply. I mean, Moby Dick. When I read Moby Dick the first time, I've probably read it 7 or 8 times now, but the first time I read Moby Dick, it engrossed me like this. I'm not trying to say that Shepard's on par with Melville, but that book, and again, once I got to that last third, once the pieces that he had been putting in place, the little, you don't see him building while you read, but then you start to realize what's going on. And as disjointed as it seems, titled, untitled, poetry, prose, in the last third of the book, it all comes together. Like, if you've ever seen those round, flat bags that you just put down as a flat piece of fabric, and you put all your crap inside, and then when you pull the string, it comes up into a sack. That's how this book is. It's a flat piece of book, and you read it, but as you're reading, that drawstring is being slowly pulled. And as you approach the end third, that string closes right around your neck, and it's gorgeous. All right. let's see here. Just about out of time. I have a little couple more minutes, so I'm gonna pick, let's see. We'll do some Elise Cowan. Elise Cowan was a beat poet that was terribly unknown. She leapt to her death from a window, through a closed window. And it's a shame. She was in love with Allen Ginsberg, but Ginsberg was in love with Neal Cassady. There was a quote once that said, "To Elise, Ginsberg was eternity, but to Ginsberg, Elise was a moment." And the torment of that destroyed her. See if I can squeeze two in. She was also untitled. Her poems in this book look much like Shepard's do. It's just all over the place. Death, I'm coming. Wait for me. I know you'll be at the subway station loaded with galoshes, raincoat, umbrella, babushka, and your single simple answer to every meaning. Incorruptible institution, listen to what she said. There's a passage through the white cabbages. High and laughing through 3 hours, faithful paranoid. It's all one to you, isn't it? Real, that is. Literal enough to find a snoozing place among thick visions, till she'll stumble over you, or wait till rot down with the majesty orange she's stuck on her finger. Real as the worn green hide-a-bed I brood on, never hearing clearly enough to remember, or open-armed at the passage end. The homeless who lights in her, from her, is her, moving perfection human, waits for no one, not even you. This is the second poem, also untitled. These are by Elise Cowan. I took the skin of corpses and dyed them blue for dreams. Oh, I can wear these everywhere. I sat home in my jeans. I cut the hair of corpses and wove myself a wreath, finer than silk or wool, I thought, and shivered underneath. I cut the ears of corpses to make myself a hood, warmer than forget-me-nots. I paid for that in blood. I robbed the eyes of corpses so I could face the sun, but all the days had cloudy skies and I had lost my own. From the sex of corpses I sewed a union suit. Esther, Solomon, God himself were humbler than you. I took the thoughts of corpses to buy my daily needs, but all the good in all the stores were neatly labeled me. I borrowed heads of corpses to do my reading by. I found my name on every page and every word a lie. Now when I meet the spirits in whose tappings I am jailed, they buy me wine or read a book. No one can make my bail. When I become a spirit, I'll have to wait for life. I'll sell my deadly body to the student doctor's knife. That was Elise Cowan. May she rest in peace. All right, Chad, I think you're the only one left. Thank you so much for coming by and reading your work and letting me read your work. It was a good time. I'm glad you're enjoying that playlist and Star Set. Oh, you want to see my autograph since it's just you? I will post this, but there's my VIP pass. And this is a book that the band wrote. Mostly Dustin Bates, but they signed it for me. I'm terribly excited. All right, I think that's about the end. Thank you for coming by. Anybody who reads or watches this tomorrow in my story, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon. Have a good night.